Today's Friday Forum is made possible by Bank of the Cascades, CenturyLink, Family Care Health Plan, Miller Nash, The Standard, and Stoll Reeves.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. If you could please take your seats. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and welcome to the City Club of Portland Friday Forum. I am John HORVICK, City Club President, and I'd like to welcome members and guests alike. Those of you who join us today at the Governor Hotel, and those of you listening on OPB Radio or watching on Portland Community Media. Today, Multnomah County Chair Marissa Madrigal will take the stage for the State of the County address, but first, some announcements. The generous support of City Club's corporate and media partners ensures we put on the best civic programs week after week. I'd like to thank our media partners, including Oregon Business Magazine. Our current Friday Forum sponsors are Bank of the Cascades, CenturyLink, Family Care Health Plans, Miller Nash, The Standard, and Stoll Reeves. We are grateful for your support and commitment to City Club's mission. Please join me in a warm round of applause for all of them. Join us next week when Dr. Jeremy Brown, president of Portland Community College, will share his views on PCC's unique role in achieving the state's 40-40-20 goals. Next week, after-hours events include a look into Portland's age-friendly housing options and NLC's Why Behind the Weird series with a focus on the Franken tax, that is Oregon's property tax system. We are now accepting applications to serve on research committees. Committees will consider a wide range of issues, including homelessness, taxes, marriage, marijuana, immigration, and more. You can learn more about these and other club events, purchase tickets, and become a member on our website, pdxcityclub.org. As always, City Club will be live tweeting today's event. You can follow or mention us at pdxcityclub, and be sure to use the hashtag in your City Club in your own tweets. We'll be having a Q&A session at the end of today's program. Members, please come to the microphone to ask your question, and for all our audience participants, please locate the index cards in the center of your table and write your questions on them during the forum. We'll collect them prior to the start of the Q&A. And now to our program. Marissa Madrigal became chair of Multnomah County Board of Commissioners last fall. As chair and chief executive, she oversees roughly 5,600 full and part-time employees who provide key services for public safety, the library system, and support for seniors and the disabled. Her goals as chair including helping residents gain better access to county programs, finding ways for those who speak different languages to connect better with services, coordinating with local governments and the Oregon legislature around program funding issues, and finishing off the budget for the next fiscal year. She is before us today to address the state of Multnomah County. And so without further ado, please join me in welcoming Multnomah County Chair Marissa Madrigal to the stage.
Wow. Thank you for having me. Today, I have the incredible honor of representing an organization, community, and people I love, Multnomah County. But before I begin, I want to honor the history of this place where we stand, a history that doesn't just go back a few hundred years, but instead thousands. When we say the name Multnomah, we invoke the name of a people, the first people to inhabit this land and the same people who live among us now, too often invisibly. The Multnomah dwelled on these banks for millennia before manifest destiny, disease, and extermination pushed them to the edge of extinction. While one might be tempted to absolve oneself of responsibility for historic wrongs, the truth is that people of privilege continue to benefit from the inequity born of horrible actions. The great-grandchildren of those who were harmed are today still more likely to be suffering. The forced assimilation of Indigenous people continues to result in staggering overrepresentation of Native Americans in the foster care system, the justice system, and poverty. The reason I work for Multnomah County, the reason I am here today, is because I believe we can do better. I believe as a people, we possess the strength to make a difference in the lives of our friends and neighbors, no matter who they are or where they come from. Please help me welcome Carlos McNair, a member of the Klamath Tribes and a youth and education specialist at the Native American Youth and Family Center. Carlos has agreed to honor us today with a hand drum song. Thank you, Carlos. It's difficult to overstate how proud I am of so much of the work Multnomah County is doing. I've witnessed our passion for people, our heart and our grit more times than I can count. We touch every corner of our community, whether it's seniors and people with disabilities or kids learning to read. Whether it's finding new homes for pets or keeping your summers a little less mosquito-plagued. Public health, bridges, libraries, jails, we do it all. But talking about the state of Multnomah County without acknowledging our community's collective responsibility, our weaknesses, the real size and expense of our complexity of our problems, feels hollow. I know that this speech is typically an opportunity to score political points and generally avoid talking about depressing things. But if I've learned anything over the course of my life, including my recent experience, it's that nothing is more valuable, powerful, or essential than the truth. Also, to talk about the present or future without understanding or articulating the continuing impact of the past is to speak without context and misrepresent the facts. If we want to improve people's lives, we have to understand how their lives became casualties in the first place. Multnomah County grapples every day with the infinite complexity of the human condition. It's tempting in a speech like this to shy away from complexity and go heavy on the memorable quips. It's tempting, but it would be wrong. We all know and love people who possess beautiful skills and battle terrible demons. We cringe when we see someone sum them up in a look. At Multnomah County, our vision of a more perfect union is one that embraces the entire person. A vision that believes in the potential for everyone to live a happy, productive life. We've seen what happens when we attempt to make sense of the complexity and contradictions by assigning people and problems to one category, one department, or one government. Nothing. We treat one symptom only to have the disease devour our hopes. It's why housing alone, or health insurance alone, or a jail bed alone won't change the things we want to change. People are more complicated than slogans. We must embrace the hard truth that one-dimensional solutions and one-off policies aren't solutions at all. Only a lot of work, money, and power will bring our people out of suffering. A member of the Grant Constitution team named Annalise Cowan came to a commission meeting last year and said something I found deeply moving and profound. This young woman said, "It is important as a citizen to not be selfish with your knowledge, to spread it to those who didn't get the same opportunities you did in life." There is so much wisdom and love wrapped up in those words. It holds true whether you're lucky to be blessed with a healthy, wealthy family or have traveled a harder, bumpier road. Everyone has knowledge and wisdom to share. And what better advice for someone like me who unexpectedly finds themselves in a position to be a little less selfish. So today, I will tell you 3 stories I think you need to know, instead of ones I might want you to know. None of these stories is all good or all bad. Like our own lives and winding paths, they're complicated. In telling them, I will subject you to my biases, and in hearing them, you will apply yours. But through these stories, I hope you'll begin to understand the true state of Multnomah County and see the glimmers of opportunity on the horizon. The county is responsible for many pieces of the public safety system: prosecution, jails, parole, and probation. But in the barrage of statistics and the interplay with the police, legislation, and courts, it's sometimes hard to understand the real-life impacts of our choices. Several years ago, I met a dazzling young woman. When it came to politics, she was a natural. So much of what happens in the political environment is between the lines, and she could not only read it, but analyzed it instantly. She was professional, responsible, kind, and funny. And unbeknownst to many of us who knew her, this junior in college had experienced more of the real world than her peers could imagine. At 10 years old, this young lady and her siblings were placed in the foster care system when it was determined that her biological mother was abusive, addicted, and could no longer care for them. By this time, she had already become a mother figure to her siblings, who were then split into 2 homes and experienced all the associated trauma. Despite how adults had failed her, she was able to attend a private high school, earned a coveted internship, and got into a prestigious private college. The summer after she graduated, I learned that while attending college, this young, talented woman had been charged with, convicted of, and served jail time for a nonviolent financial crime she committed at 18 at the urging and under the influence of her biological mother. The courage with which she delivered this information was heart-stopping. She said, "I am okay with being uncomfortable with sharing this piece of information, but I also do not care if I am judged. I know who I am, so you can judge me or love me, and that decision is for you to make." Her mother was never charged, but she was. A court-appointed attorney recommended that this young woman plead guilty to multiple felonies, which would have permanently devastated her life's upward trajectory. After a private attorney hired by someone who believed in her potential stepped in, she pled guilty to 1 charge with jail time and hundreds of hours of community service. She owns her role in what happened. But do we? Where exactly was the justice in her experience? Would she have been counseled to plead to multiple felonies if she had been white? How would her life be different if her mother's mental illness and addiction could have been prevented or treated? Where would she be if she hadn't been able to attend a school that supported her or find adults who believed in her? Most importantly, what would have happened if she wasn't one of the most positive, strong, resilient, beautiful people I know? What's most frightening to me is that the only thing unique about this story is my friend's ability to beat the odds. Her story makes me proud of her and angry at us. How many young people are sitting in our jails and prisons right now, deciding that their lives are over, with no one left to fight for them? Instead of just punishing, how can we hold people who make mistakes accountable and help them not make the same mistakes again? At the county and as a country, we have a long way to go to address these questions. There is hope if we can acknowledge that our biases directly and negatively impact people's lives. This isn't a theory, it's a fact. People of all races commit crimes at the same rate. The only explanation for overrepresentation of people of color in our justice system is us, our subjectivity and bias. Your crime and your risk you pose to society should be the primary determinants of your punishment, not your income, your skin color, or your accent. It's stories like this that have driven the county's juvenile justice program to use facts and evidence. We're using scientific methods to understand and measure the success or failure of our programs, and we're using that information to change what we fund. We're using it to invest in programs and strategies that are proven to work. Sounds rational, right? But sometimes the evidence is counterintuitive and goes against stubborn social mores. Turns out that for first-time, low-level youth offenders, the harsher the punishment and the more intense our intervention is, the worse the outcome. We see higher recidivism rates, not lower ones. So when appropriate, we're trying to have a lighter touch because we understand now it's a better way to keep the community safe and keep young people on track. 2 years ago, our juvenile justice team also began using something called a functional family model. Rather than behaving as if a young person exists on an island by themselves, the functional family model allows probation officers to use a reality-based approach. No kid, and no person for that matter, is an island. Parents and siblings, their jobs, health, and problems all impact the outcomes for kids. We've applied these same principles to our work with Black and Latino gang-affected youth and their families, because we know that by understanding different cultural, religious, familial, and intergenerational dynamics present in different populations, we're able to direct our resources in ways that work. But there's one very important thing to keep in mind when I tell you that our juvenile justice program is the best in the country. We don't actually want your children to end up there. We can be the best in the country, but on the river of broken dreams, we're the ocean. We're the end. We need the best neighborhoods, the best teachers, the best schools, the best everything to happen for kids before us if we want to reduce disproportionate outcomes for kids and adults. On the adult side, this year our county will implement evidence-based practices aimed at reducing the prison population. At the direction of the governor and legislature, the DA, sheriff, judges, probation, and parole are all working together to fund smart, effective alternatives to incarceration. Of course, some people need to be locked up. We'll never stop needing jails and prisons completely, but we need to be smarter. Prison and jail are blunt, expensive instruments that aren't effective at changing people's behavior. As technology improves and data is automated, it will only be easier to ensure that how we are working is as effective as we think it is. Every year, we're better able to assess who is at risk of reoffending and which programs are most effective at making us safer. I will end this story with my young friend's wise words. Jail served to denigrate me to the point that I would rather have been dead, hating my biological mother and myself, feeling lonely, unwanted, unsuccessful, and most importantly, that God, family, and friends no longer loved me. Jail is not a place to learn or promote changing of one's ways. The next story is a difficult one for me to share. A year ago, I lost a dear friend when he took his own life. Paul was a writer, artist, performer, and proprietor of Sniffy Linings Press, an online collection of local authors' stories and essays. He was short, sweet, curly-haired, and sometimes maddening. He encouraged and inspired people who didn't have anyone else on their side. One of my favorite quotes of his was this: "It might be a madhouse, but we live here." To survive, he did graphic design under the table, and in his later years, he wrote painstaking yo-yo reviews for amusement. He didn't have children and lived an on and off drug-addled life. But when I gave birth to my daughter 10 years ago, he bought her a tiny little pair of lime polka dot socks. He was complicated, and he was suffering from the lasting effects of childhood trauma, poverty, and crippling self-medicated mental illness. Over the decade and a half I knew Paul, I saw him cycle and fight successfully and unsuccessfully to get control. In the final years and days of his life, his complications had become so entangled that it was impossible to comb them into separate strands. Last January, when he was bullied by his landlord after requesting repairs, his state deteriorated. Those of us who tried to help him feared that he would attempt to take his life, but we all thought if we loved him enough, if we found him a lawyer, if we found him a place to stay, we could hold on to our friend. He died alone, believing that he was going to be evicted from the now condemned, mold-infested apartment he had called home for a decade. Paul was special to me, but again, his experience and his circumstances were not unique, particularly visible, or frankly, the worst. They are tragically worse. But as I have personally struggled to come to terms with our collective failure to help him save himself, it has sharpened my sense of what the public's priorities should be. There were thousands of critical junctures in Paul's life where prevention or intervention might have made a difference. Paul's suicide might have been prevented if someone 40 years ago had protected him from abuse. He might have been better able to cope if 30 years ago someone had recognized and treated the symptoms of his trauma. He might have been able to cope with the idea of finding a new place to live if there had been any affordable apartment west of I-205 that would take him and his non-existent credit. Instead, the complications in his life piled up and suffocated him. At Multnomah County, our challenge as the safety net, particularly when it comes to mental illness, is to be responsive to the crisis in ways that work, while at the same time expanding investment in the supports that help people thrive before and after a crisis. For example, I believe that Paul might have killed himself earlier if not for a city housing inspector who came to his apartment and validated the complaints Paul had made to his landlord about the condition of his place. That work matters. How is your mental health today? Would it be the same if you had no home, no money, and no heat? How would it be if a few faraway people in Washington, D.C. cut your already inadequate food budget? I'm going to talk a little bit more about why mental health treatment is important, but to be responsible, I need to emphasize that it's only one piece of the puzzle. In recent years, Multnomah County has capitalized on an improving financial picture and made strategic investments in evidence-based prevention. For example, we're building community capacity through our mental health first aid program, so more people, including frontline staff, recognize the signs and symptoms of mental illness before a crisis. We're screening for mental illness and addiction in routine doctor's visits. We're aggressively treating youth who have just had their first experience with psychosis to keep them on track socially and developmentally. We also continue to reach out to kids at school through our long-standing school-based mental health and medical programs. As more people are enrolled in insurance through the Affordable Care Act, we expect more people to access mental health care earlier. Multnomah County also hopes and expects that some services we now subsidize with general fund will be covered by insurance, allowing us to fund the other things people need: housing, food, wraparound support. That said, before you cheer about more people being covered, I want to make sure you know that as a community, that doesn't let us off the hook. We, the people of Multnomah County, need to increase our mental health literacy. We need to understand the difference between mental illness and addiction and what happens when folks are struggling with both. We all need to know the number to the mental health crisis line. So take out your pens. 503-988-4888. We need to understand that people suffering from mental illness have the right to experience symptoms in public, just the way you have a right to go to Safeway when you're under the weather. And we need to know that like our physical health, our mental health needs a lifetime of maintenance. I can't change the trajectory of Paul's life, but I can make sure you know that as a community, we need to be committed to a continuum of effective services, from early identification to inpatient mental health and addictions treatment to supportive housing, if we want to see a difference on our streets, in our schools, and in our homes. The last story I want to tell you is a happy one, and it's probably going to embarrass that young man sitting right there at my table. Sorry. One of the things that I love about our country and our state is that we are dreamers. We believe in the potential to change our fates. It makes us fun and innovative and exciting, but too often we expect that all it takes is hard work. And we find these examples of people who have overcome great odds or had incredible accomplishments, and we say, see, they did it. It's totally possible. But we leave things out. We leave out, or they leave out, when they got help. Even though they did. Everyone does, whether it's from a social service program or a family legacy of money, power, and access. That young man at my table is Natividad Zavala. Natividad is our office's policy assistant. He grew up in Salem with two hardworking, loving parents. Natividad is quick-witted, smart, and he hustles. Sometimes when I see him walking quickly through the office, I recognize the competitive spirit my parents instilled in me, that drive that pushes you to be better than yourself, to keep growing, learning, absorbing. He is the first person in his family to graduate from college. Yeah. We're just gonna make it real embarrassing. In Natividad's case, he didn't start with a college legacy in his family. When your parents have gone to college, you have a built-in network of advisors. If your high school counselor sucks, no problem. Mom knows how to interpret college entrance standards. If you want to go Ivy, Uncle Alex went to Harvard and can tell you how he played the game, starting with expensive SAT prep courses. Although Nati's family provided a loving, stable environment, when it came to college stuff, he was on his own. But in Salem, Willamette University has partnered with private donors to provide a college readiness program called Willamette Academy. From middle school through high school, Willamette Academy provides homework help, takes kids to visit college campuses, and has them work with Willamette professors. Nati says, Willamette Academy gave me an opportunity I might never have had, the opportunity to have a college education, the opportunity to realize my dreams, an opportunity that has forever changed my life and the life of my family. Natividad graduated in 2013 and is now employed, paying taxes, and helping support his family in Salem. In Willamette Academy, 100% of recent graduates graduated from high school, 100% of recent graduates enrolled in a college or university following graduation, and Academy students have received over $10 million in scholarships. You might find it odd that I would tell you about a non-Multnomah County program, but I love Nati's story because it's a great example of a local team effort having wide-reaching, lifelong effects that Multnomah County will benefit from. It's also a model that we can copy and replicate in our own community. Now, Multnomah County is part of Natividad's team. We see his drive, skills, and potential to be whatever he wants to be. And teaming up, formally or informally, is a best practice recognized by leaders in social service innovation, whether it's governments, nonprofits, businesses, or all of the above. Team members are required to let go of the individual glory and to be vulnerable. They have to trust each other, engage, participate, and communicate to win. That is the dynamic we need in our community when we're tackling our problems. At Multnomah County, we're coordinating policies with school districts and nonprofits to improve student success and eliminate disparities. It's not easy because we all have egos, but we're expanding our comfort zone so we achieve better, more consistent results across our community. Our health department is teaming up on a meta and micro level. Multnomah County is a part of each of our region's coordinated care organizations, Health Share of Oregon and Family Care. And our healthcare delivery model has pivoted to patient-centered care provided by teams. When we treat someone at the dentist and discover signs of hypertension, their primary care provider and their case manager are made aware of the issue and can be part of the treatment. When someone comes into our jail with chronic physical and behavioral health diseases, we're helping them apply for insurance and then work with our partners in the community to make sure they continue to get treatment. Beyond the health department, we're creating a regional team that includes governments and residents to coordinate how we should spend valuable federal housing and homelessness dollars. Our winter warming shelters are run and funded by a team of faith leaders, volunteers, and county employees. For me, the best part of being on a team is being able to accomplish things together that you could never do alone. As many of you know, we have an incredible system of Sun Community Schools across our country that are joint ventures of the county, cities, nonprofits, and school districts. If you have one at your school, you get free after-school classes and access to other vital services. Sun keeps kids engaged, safe, and out of trouble after school. But the problem is that only about half the schools in Multnomah County are Sun schools. And next year, about a dozen current Sun schools have funding that is in danger of going away. Some of you may also recall that last year, funding for Sun schools was at the center of a last-minute budget spat between the city and county. As examples go, that was not great teamwork. And while we patched things over, the public was understandably alarmed and concerned about what would happen this year. So, a few months ago, Mayor Hales and I committed that instead of rehashing last year's city-county budget drama-rama, we would sit together and try to make sense of some things in the city and county budgets. We agreed on some principles up front, including the idea that while it might make business sense for the city or county to be solely responsible for some things, there were other areas where a legacy of mutual investment has maximized the benefit to the community, like Sun schools. I'm delighted to report today that the mayor and I, in partnership with several school districts, will propose ongoing funding for 10 current Sun schools and propose expanding funding to an additional 10 schools in next year's city and county budgets. What this means is that together we would have 80 Sun Community Schools across the county, serving 24,000 students and their families with improved access to food pantries, energy assistance, and health and mental health resources, as well as academic support, enrichment, and recreational activities. It also means that priority schools in East Portland and East Multnomah County with the highest rates of both poverty and racial inequity will be Sun Community Schools. We've agreed on a few other things too. The mayor and I will propose that the city and county jointly fund services for victims of sexual exploitation and maintain short-term rent assistance to prevent people from becoming homeless. We've also identified a few areas where it makes sense for one of us to take responsibility. So, for example, our budgets will propose that the county fully fund the Crisis Assessment and Treatment Center, while the city shoulders the full cost of the sobering station at Hooper. The county would fully fund senior centers, and the city would pay for enforcement of its specified animal code, which is bees and chickens and livestock, in case you're wondering. I won't bore you with the full itemization of what we plan to propose, but I will ask Mary Hales to stand so that we can thank you properly for being a team player we need. Thank you, Mary Hill. In closing, I want to take a moment to step back and pull together the complexities and themes present today. Like all of us in this room, each person I spoke about had things in their life that went well and things that didn't. We all inherit a mix of advantages and disadvantages. For some, and I include myself in this group, even the mild adversity I've experienced has made me stronger and more compassionate. For others, the disadvantages are so material and heavy that they may feel impossible to overcome. I believe that government's job, which is really the people's job and a fundamental value of our country, is to give everyone a fair shot at life, at freedom. But that doesn't mean giving everyone the same thing. It means we need to meet people where they are and give them what they need to be successful. Not give them what I need or what you need, but what they need in a way that respects their humanity. Our predecessors' choices and our choices have created imbalances and inequities that we must correct in order to be just. Multnomah County has begun this work through the application of an equity lens to our programs and departments. We use it as a quality improvement tool to identify and address the choke points and pressure valves in our systems that result in disparate outcomes for people. We hope that over time, this tool will have meaningful and measurable impacts on the work we do. I also want to point out that while innovative investment tools like social impact bonds look promising, we don't have to wait to invest more deeply or strategically. The people in our various organizations, nonprofits, governments, businesses, can invest now by supporting better revenue streams at the local, state, and national level. Taxes. There is plenty of money in this country, but the majority of it is controlled by a privileged few whose addiction to money is fueling our income gap and our suffering. One of Multnomah County's most important roles is to serve people surviving at the bottom. But we can't just fund the safety net. We need to bring the bottom up. And we can't do that unless we support workers and their unions. We need to stop the billionaires' assault on the working class, masquerading as right to work and choice. We need to raise the minimum wage so that corporations aren't dumping their responsibilities on the public's tab. We need to make sure that no one has to choose between caring for themselves or a child and losing their job. We don't just need paid sick leave in Portland or Multnomah County. We need it in all of Oregon. A hard day's work should earn you more than a paycheck, whether you're a janitor or a banker. It should earn you dignity. It should earn you respect. It should earn you the stability to plan for the future and care for your loved ones. I've had the honor of working with so many wonderful people in my time at the county that I could take up the entire hour here just reading their names. And their impact is such that I could never do justice to the weight or quiet brilliance of their stories. Thank you, Multnomah County employees, for everything you do to make our world better. Your passion, your dignity, and your respect for the lives of others set you apart. Of course, those employees include the 7 individuals you, the public, hired to oversee the work of this government. I'd ask you to stand. Commissioner Diane McKeel. Commissioner Judy Shiprack. Commissioner Loretta Smith. Commissioner Liesel Wendt. Sheriff Dan Staton. District Attorney Rod Underhill. And Auditor Steve March. I would be remiss if I also didn't thank former Commissioner Deborah Kafori. Thank you for your service to our community. And because it takes a few rather large villages to ensure the health and safety of our people, we're trying harder than ever to align our work with city governments. Together with the cities of Portland, Gresham, Wood Village, Fairview, and Troutdale, and Maywood Park, we're working with limited resources to keep people safe and help them prosper. Thank you to all our cities who are partnering with us. Thank you to my staff in the chair's office, especially my chief of staff, Emerald Walker, who sacrifices countless hours to advance the county's mission. Thank you to my parents, Elizabeth and Salvador Madrigal, who taught me what it means to choose love every time, no matter the question. Thank you to my husband and best friend, Alex, who has seen me through some really very ugly cries and is raising with me the 2 most beautiful and smart little people in the world. Lastly, there are hundreds of people out there, some of whom I know and some of whom I don't, who have shown me, my family, and Multnomah County employees compassion and kindness over the last year. We are grateful for each word, each hug, each note, each sentiment. Thank you. So, if one did have to boil this speech down to one sentence, it's this: we need to do the things that work for people, comma, together. Put another way, I will interpret that for my bureaucratic brothers and sisters, because I know you're here. We need to fund evidence-based, outcome-driven prevention and intervention as part of a multidisciplinary, multi-jurisdictional, public-private community team. Oh my goodness. Okay, now y'all are gonna make me cry. Multnomah County, you are beautiful, strong, flawed, and loved. The problems our community faces are things county employees and nonprofits and people dedicate their lives to because they know that nothing short of that will solve anything. We need more of them, which means we need more of you. We need all of you and everyone listening on our team. I'm not asking you to quit your job and become a social worker, although that would be nice. I am asking you to take an active interest in and make a financial commitment to our community forever. Yes, forever. We need you for the rest of your life. I don't expect to see the job finished in my lifetime or my children's lifetime, but we have to start somewhere, and it's our turn. Is that overwhelming enough for you? A lifetime? I believe in us. I believe in this special place. Together, let's find the courage to seek the truth. Real truth. The kind that comes with laugh lines and scars and embarrassing stories that are even better told 10 years later when they're actually funny. Let's start there. Thank you.
Thank you. And now if you have a written question on an index card, please hold it high so City Club staff can collect it from you. We'll now take questions from the floor. As always, we invite members to the microphone to ask their question. Asking questions at the Friday Forum microphone is a benefit of City Club membership, and membership is open to everyone. Before asking your question, please identify yourself as a City Club member. Please ask only one question and make it succinct as possible.
Edward Hershey, City Club member. In the documentary American Winter that is now being shared with the world on HBO, some of the problems we have in our city, county, and state are readily apparent. One of the most eloquent voices in that documentary is a business leader. I couldn't help but noticing that when you talked about workers and unions and minimum wage, there were far fewer applause in this room than some of your other comments. How have you been able to reach out to the business community in order to mutually address the problems that we face, and how can it be done better?
Well, that's an excellent question. I don't think that I'm there yet. I think that Multnomah County has a long way to go to communicate and educate the business community on our programs and services and how what we do benefits everyone in our community, including businesses. You know, I think our country, it's not just our community, but our country is polarized. And you know, there's this idea that cutting taxes is the only way to create jobs. I don't agree. I think that we need to fund the right level of services to support our people and work in partnership. There are lots of ways that we can work together, but I think that we have a long way to go.
Win Wakala, City Club member. I want to thank Multnomah County for stepping up and taking such a major role in the fight against human trafficking. And I would like to ask you to talk a little bit about that.
Well, the work that Multnomah County has done has been championed not by me, but by other people on the commission, Commissioner Diane McKeel and Commissioner Loretta Smith, and at the city, Commissioner Amanda Fritz. You know, I think the work that we've done has really changed the way that people think about women who are arrested for prostitution and really begin to see them as the victims that they are, and especially children, young women who have been exploited. And you know, it seems, I think people have the idea that it's a small problem, that there's only a few of them, and that's just not the case. There are far too many. And frankly, in my opinion, even if there was only one, it would be worth investing in.
Chris Andre, City Club member. Thank you so much. That was really something.
Thank you.
I haven't seen that before. Virtually speechless, so I'm just going to say thank you.
Thank you.
People who know what I normally do up here, this is meaningful.
Thank you.
Hi, Jill O'Dell, City Club member and Chief Petitioner of the Right to Work measure, which you mentioned. And thank you for your speech. It was great, but I feel like I had to stand up and identify myself since you said that my measure is masquerading as a freedom issue. So I just wanted to ask you if you think it's fair to require government employees to pay money to a politically active organization in order to hold a job.
I believe that employees who work for the government, where a union is negotiating their benefits and wages, should contribute to that negotiation. And I think that the only way that people, workers, are able at all to push back against the pressures that businesses place on them. When you think about all the kids coming out of college who are going into retail and food service jobs where they're temporary employees forever and they have no benefits and no stability, the only way to combat that is by working together, and the only way to work together is as part of a union.
Ted Kay, City Club member. The bridges over the Willamette in the Portland and Multnomah County area are owned by 4 or 5 different entities or jurisdictions. Do you think that's the right situation? And if not, how would you fix it?
Well, I don't know if right is the word that I would use to describe why we have some bridges and other jurisdictions have other ones. For those of you who don't know, Multnomah County operates 6 Willamette River bridges, and we have the responsibility for those because of decisions made long ago, while the city of Portland has responsibility for the roads leading up to them. It's probably not the most efficient way to conduct business. Our bridge shop does a great job. I think that it's something that the city and county should explore and look at how to combine those functions. Combining doesn't solve revenue problems. Just because if the city had the bridges, they would still have the same amount of money that we have to run them. So I think there's the one problem of being efficient and who has what. And then there's how do we pay for our beautiful 100-year-old bridges? And how do we make sure that they can survive a Cascadia subduction zone earthquake? So I think that there's trying to find better alignment. But to me, the bigger question is how do we make sure that after an earthquake we have bridges still over the Willamette?
Unfortunately, we have run out of broadcast time for further questions, and we'll have to stop for today. And as we close today, please join me in offering our sincere thanks to Multnomah County Chair, Marissa Madrigal. We are adjourned.